federal system. Ready? All right. Well,
Okay, I should now, but if you think of it, let me know. Thank you.
so how many specifications? Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I have somebody check me back. Always good, and stop and see us. Everybody's attention, it's 7 o'clock. We'll get this workshop for the Scottsville going. I'd like to thank all the public for being here. I'd like to thank all the council staff and the tickets for being here. First on our agenda is a report from police chief Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor, council members. Thank you all for having me this evening. A couple of significant calls for service that you can see on the report. That we responded to a couple of vehicle break-ins last month within the town limits. We did identify a suspect, was able to get some of the property from one of the vehicles back to the owner. However, the suspect would not admit breaking into the vehicle where the computer handgun was stolen and that kind of stuff. So we're still working on trying to get that handgun and computer recovered. We also assisted ACPD with DUI saturation control efforts last month. One of our officers covered from was it the Remount Country Store south into the town and then back up and into the county, provided the DUI.
What's that look like? What is the saturation?
Their main effort was to do patrols for those DUI drivers. I've actually, probably speeding is most likely one of our biggest complaints in the town, and I think in the near future we may see some developments down here helping us in the very near future, doing some speeding as well to help slow people down during that rush hour in the mornings and evening. So trying to take advantage of the resources that we have access to and hopefully try to keep people safe in the town. But speeding is one of the biggest complaints I get in the town. That's before going. We also assisted Commonwealth County with a search warrant on a wanted person. That person was taken into custody without any incident. Couple of community events that are coming up this month on the 26th at Scottsville Elementary. We'll be participating in Touch the Truck with the kids up there at the elementary school on Saturday. And then again, this year we'll be doing National Night Out at the Boys and Girls Club parking lot here on August the 5th from 6 to 8 p.m. Our auxiliary officers, you can see, donated 126.5 of their hours to the town this past month. You can see the cost savings for the town this year compared to last year thus far. Also wanted to let council know that we did complete the 2024 equipment grant. All of the reports were submitted and approved by DCGS. And also 2 weeks ago got the 2025 equipment grant submitted and just waiting on some feedback from DCGS as to whether or not we were successful in getting the computers and AEDs. Advertisement for the new police officer position we had to expand that a little bit. Did cost us a little bit more money. But right now, we've had about 30 applications. Only one certified, and that person was from the city of Charlottesville. Was supposed to come down and meet with me and do a tour of the town, but never called, never showed back up. So, as far as I'm concerned, that person's qualified for this consideration. Met with a number of other certified officers, but they're still telling me that the money's not right for them to be able to leave, come up with the town to work. So maybe the first time that we have to send an officer to the academy and get an officer trained. I do have one that's local person. I think she will do very well here. She's the person that's selected. I have a committee that's been put together. The mayor, vice mayor, John Ball, one of my auxiliary officers, and Sergeant Stoll will be sitting on the interview panel to interview candidates. So all the applications and resumes have been sent to him. He'll pick the top 2 or 3. I suggested maybe 3 people, 4 people for the interview panel to consider, and then they'll forward me the top 1 or 2, and then we'll move forward from there.
I'm sorry, a backtrack question. What's the money difference typically between what an officer who's interested and what we're offering?
It's a good question. And I've been batting that around in my mind. So certified officers, you well know, we council approved 58,100 as the new starting salary for a new officer in the town. My thought process is landing on a number. I'm thinking probably in the area of maybe 54 to 55 for a non-certified. Albemarle's is at 53, but there are now departments that are starting brand new officers at 55, 56 dollars. Sending them to the academy, bringing them back. Bigger jurisdictions are starting with 60,000. So it just depends. My thought process, Mr. Britzko, is if we have to send a person to the academy, start them out at about 54, 55. Once they go get the training, come back, finish their FTO, and after they get off that 1-year probation, then maybe bump them to that 58-1. Give them that incentive to complete the training successfully, get through field training, get off probation, and then match that starting pay. So that's what I'm thinking. But we'll have to see. You know, they may say if I don't get 58-1, I'm not taking the job. It just depends. I'm thinking that's most departments, at least in this area, if they're brand new and have to go to the academy, they start them a little lower. And then after that first year, they start making those big bumps. So I'm thinking they would do the same thing.
And the application end date is when?
18th is when ZipRecruiter will be cut off. I know the sergeant hasn't reached out to the committee yet to set a date, and I think that's just because the mayor's out of town right now. But what we really have to do is get those people interviewed, get a couple of people submitted, because we've got to do background, polygraph, psychological, and then all the medical stuff, drug testing and stuff like that. I want to get the person into the July 1st, or that first week of that Monday after July 4th is when the academy starts. And I want to get them in that academy if we have to send someone non-certified.
So after APT, no more applications, and we look at what we got.
Right. I think we can get all of the process, the hiring process done before the July deadline. But it'll take some work to get it done, but we'll get it done. No P card purchases this past month as well. Council can see the statistics from January to March thus far. Any questions on the stats or anything? No? That's all I have about there.
Anyone have any questions?
Yeah. I've noticed some enthusiastic music players coming through town recently. Is there any noise ordinance or anything that we can do to or maybe just ask them. When it's pretty.
We could certainly ask them. But if council will remember, we had talked about this when I first got hired down here, not long after. And that was my recollection that the prior two chiefs before had recommended to the council that we did not need a noise ordinance. And the way the noise ordinance right now stands is it has to be a decibel reader, it has to be certain decibels. And I know when I worked with the county, we found that the decibel readers just weren't a really reliable means to be able to enforce that. They require to be calibrated, you have to purchase the device, calibrate them every so often, those type of things. My recommendation would be that, we draft a noise ordinance and maybe consider what that looks like from council. But if the council wants a noise ordinance, we can certainly work on drafting one.
I was under the impression that what they used to do, I mean, is if an officer or someone could hear the thing, you could hear the music. If you cannot see the vehicle, then definitely noise issue. But if they can see the vehicle and hear the music, so many feet away from the car. But I mean, I understand it's kind of hard to enforce if somebody driving down the road and with a convertible or something. Yeah, there's nothing to keep the music inside. But if you were to draft a noise ordinance in music, would that also include vehicles and trucks and stuff like that, as far as the jobs, dead birds and stuff, would that all be in the big umbrella, or that just gonna be specific?
I think barking dogs. I get a neighbor up the road here that complains about a barking dog. There are a lot of things that we could consider, or council could consider, as far as the noise ordinance. It's just what does council want to look at?
Some years ago, and this would be the fact that Mayor was here probably 10 or so years ago, there was a time where we had some issues much earlier on the breweries, a lot of discussion, complaints, and stuff, and it ended up being dealt with over time. I outside share your concern that occasionally living on Route 20, we're all treated too.
The loud truck noise.
Loud truck noise, or I wonder if we can ask them specific songs to play or not.
I'm starting to get complaints about I'm starting getting complaints about music and stuff over at the Mexican restaurant over in the shopping center now. Thursday, Friday night, Saturday nights. I'm assuming that they're able to stay open until 2 o'clock in the morning. What it looks like, they're staying open till.
They did have a karaoke night or something up there, and I think one time they had the speakers and everything set up out on the little outdoor dining area. So, yeah. But
Is there anything in their permits to keep that stuff inside, or? I don't think it is.
No, since it was commercial use, you can even require it as a special condition on for limiting. I think we would want to draft in once if it gives that as enforceability. Then beyond that, there's always the opportunity to just have a discussion.
We went through the drill before, and I've actually drafted a noise ordinance. And it's tied to decibel level, and you have to buy a decibel meter. That's not inexpensive, but that's one of the absolute requirements that you have to do. And then you have to enforce it accurately and fairly and equally. It applies not only to the restaurants out in the shopping center that play music too late, but here, there, and everywhere. So
The county's actually, Jim, got a pretty good noise ordinance that got away from the decibel readers.
but then the problem is that you have a board for vagueness, a constitutional issue every time you go to enforce the noise ordinance. That's the other side of the coin, chief.
By solving ways on ourselves.
I think the county did whether it was audible within the property lines, you have to sell full down.
There's also a sense, there's also a sense that I think it's wise for us as the council to speak on behalf of the town, just in good faith. You know, in other words, there's both an ordinance and there's also in good faith. Somebody could, say, hey, turn the music down, they don't have to turn it down, but they could turn it down. And even going back to the Mexican restaurant, obviously they want to have the good wishes of the town and they want the business to grow, and we may say, just in communicating with them, I'm not saying there's a time or not time to do it necessarily, but just in good faith. I think that's something one of the things.
And if they do it all the time, you don't have to have noise to become a nuisance. Okay. I think the town has a nuisance provision in the town code, an obscure provision in the code.
And it's very, very, subjective.
That's it, indeed it is, but it's effective because you bring a warrant, the citizen, there's warrant.
I don't like subjective. I like black and white when it comes.
That's
to
the beauty of the noise.
The county actually did get away from the noise, decibel readers. I thought their ordinance, I testified in front of the board of supervisors many times on that noise ordinance. And I think the way they finally resolved it was if I'm in my home and I have all my windows and doors shut, and I can hear it inside my home from where that noise is happening, it's a violation of the ordinance.
What happened, there was a Supreme Court of Virginia case, down in, I think it's Virginia Beach, I could be wrong on that caused everybody to go back and change their noise ordinance, put an objective standard on it, so that it would not be what's the casual observer standing across the street determines what's a violation.
No, it has to be heard by the officer for us to enforce it.
I wouldn't want to, well, you do what you want to, but I think you want to make it objective rather than subjective, just because it's easy to enforce. That's it, you want to have it, we can discuss all that when you actually get that far inside. You need one. Thought the suggestion you had, Dan, was excellent. Most people really don't want to cause a ruckus, since they know they are, they'll calm down. I think that's essentially what happens with the tavern, they're having problems. There was a natural echo going down the stream and carrying up to folks, so they could hear it considerable distance away. They work on that and get a barrier of some kind up there.
Yeah, there was some effort to mitigate it, but eventually, as you know, and we had a lot of discussion, a lot of plans.
The same way with the brewery. The outside.
Well, actually, he said the tavern, he meant the brewery.
I did.
Yeah, he meant the brewery.
Well, the tavern was bad as well.
Yes, but they have a geological problem because the sound is focused, funneled, I guess is the word, out, so they're being heard, and not just next door, but wider.
Well, I can certainly go by the Mexican restaurant and talk with them about the karaoke night and see how responsive they are to the conversation. Worth a shot.
Sometimes it can just be where he's putting the speaker.
Could be. But I'm just, karaoke night goes until 2:00. People have been in there drinking. I understand a fight happened outside. No one calls the police and I don't hear about it until the next day.
The other thing that you might want to do is you can talk to the owners of the shopping center. If your discussion with the prior.
That would be a very good move.
Yeah, I think that'll get results if you're not successful with your first.
I thought it was an ordinance, how long an establishment can stay open or when it has to close, is there nothing in our calendar?
There's an ABC regulation, I really don't know what they are, do you choose two?
What is it?
So the tavern, the brewery, they all start shutting down 9 o'clock. I think the tavern on their music night, karaoke night, they may stay open until 10, but it's pretty much done at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
But this one was a surprise. The last couple of weeks, they've been staying open until 2. And there's been a few problems up there, and I haven't heard about them until after the next day. So it's definitely worth the conversation.
Maybe that doesn't feel trying.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Chief Pickens? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Mr.
Appreciate you coming. Yeah, if I could, get you to relinquish your seat. I'd like to invite George and Luke to know.
What?
You are a gentleman.
It would be a play.
Billy, I guess we address you as the acting chairman of the Scottsville Volunteer Rescue Squad Incorporated.
I guess that worked.
Oh, okay. That's my introduction to everybody. That's Gloria Newton's got a presentation for us.
First of all, thank you guys for listening to me for a few minutes. As you probably heard from Mr. Payne, after a very long and very costly court battle out in Warren County, the Scottsville Volunteer Rescue Squad was able to maintain the funds that people had donated to us. And the board really desires to keep all the monies here to benefit people here in the Scottsville area. Scottsville is not included because that's what they're going to do. One of the needs that we have seen is that at a playground in Doria Park, there is no handicap accessible implements, and that's something that we like to do. I like to hand this out, which really just replicates what I'm going to say to you tonight. We have been talking with the county and through the county with a playground equipment installer that has given us a price on a swing for adults, a swing which helps even mobile challenged people up to adult, that they can take the wheelchair on, get on the swing, and also for org rocker. And the org rocker, you would have to have a parent place the child on it. In addition to these two implements, we'd like to replace the existing border, top off the entire playground with engineered wood fiber, replace the access ramps, replace 2 benches, replace the sign, and verbiage we'll have to work on later. For contribution to the town of Scottsville, $40,000. Now, this will not cost the town anything whatsoever. This is all inclusive. The installation will take about 3 or 4 days, and for those 3 or 4 days, nobody will be able to access the playground because of the equipment stuff that we've done. And it also includes all the removal of the old border and the old topsoil and everything. This will not nullify the agreement that you currently have with the county, which is they will maintain the playground. We have talked to, we worked through Jim Krickenberger with, sorry, Bob, sorry, you're correct, Bob Krickenberger, getting the, talking to the people to install, and this is a company that the county uses all the time. I'd like to ask you guys to look at this proposal and perhaps vote on it at your next meeting, which will be next Monday, from what I understand. And the reason for this quick turnaround is we have to go back to Albemarle County, not to get their approval, but so that we can get the approval to give them the funds so that they can pay it to get the contract discount. If you have any questions, I will certainly try to answer them. If I can't answer them, we'll find the answers in your back.
It's wonderful.
Yes, it's very helpful. Was it going to be right where the one is now, or in addition to that, but I don't know exactly where.
Okay, if you look at the schematics, it's on page 2, I think. This is the current swing that they have at the playground, and we'll replace one portion of that.
Oh, okay.
And the little,
Should just right there. Okay.
correct,
It's not a little children's playground.
it's to the side where the current swings
Oh,
are.
okay.
Mhm.
Right.
And the little orb rocker is closer to the picnic table.
For the,
It's within the boundaries, sorry.
for the wheelchair swing, would that require any, extra maintenance on the town part of the county part, because they have more moving parts?
That shouldn't, no, it shouldn't, and the warranty is also included in the packet, that time look at it, it looks to me like it's pretty expensive, even if you.
And this will hold it inside wheelchair, even your motor item.
Correct.
You know, in addition to having the playground equipment for the physical development, you're gonna see a difference in the way that the playground looks. And then, I mean, every time you put the wheelchair across the grass or rocks or even mulch. And some of the artificial materials they use, it's a tough job, this is specifically designed for that.
It's very similar to what they have now, but it is supposed to be a little better for wheelchair. Well, and then we'll replace the two benches so that everything looks refreshed and new. Yeah,
These are ramps.
correct.
You drink something.
And the benches, you said we're gonna be reflecting.
Correct.
Do we know why, you got that already, or just?
The thought was, after talking to the company, was that, to make everything look uniform. Same color, same style, same. And refreshing. And as you guys know, the nearest handicap accessible playground equipment is in Charlottesville. And I would say this will make it more friendly to our citizens and also the visitors alike.
Put it on the agenda for next week.
I have it in my notes for council.
And I can send you an electronic copy of this if you like.
That would be appreciated.
Sure. Okay.
George, did you want to say anything about the other two projects?
Sure, as far as the police vehicle, we have talked to BB&T, we're in the process of transferring the money, and so we should hopefully have everything ready within the next weeks. So that should be taken care of. Some, we are also, if you're interested in some of the things we're doing, we're also gonna do some upgrades to the ball fields. But we're not exactly sure what we're doing there yet. We are giving some money to the 3 local food banks. And, can you think of what else we're doing?
That's all I can think of it, experience, of course, donation, as we talked about, this Americans first, for their relief efforts.
And lastly, the one thing I'm very excited about is we're gonna establish a scholarship for any child from Scottsville, Esmont, or King that goes to PVCC in any medical field, whether it be veterinary, whether it be EMT, whatever, we establish a scholarship only for those kids.
And that was sustained itself
That is
through the years.
Scholarship, yeah.
And how about the mobile medical team?
Brand, yeah, remote area medical, we're working on, I don't know if you know, that's done quite often in Southwest Virginia, where people have limited access to particularly dental. And also medical, establishments and everything is free, we're trying to find a place in Scottsville. I do know.
There's a one here in South Area, should check. It's very good, yeah, most of the ones is right there. And we got, you know about that? It's I think it's the place where it's near the health center. It's I was at 6, I forgot the name of that. But they have a building there, and they have, in fact, I got several things that, you know, wheelchairs and ramps and straps and walkers. But they have, I think I give you the contact, the guy who runs it, it's just Al Quist. So that's, we play a lot of things that are interesting. You really appreciate that. They have a move. You know. That's good. Any other questions?
Hey,
Yeah, okay.
and so too long, can't stand too long.
Okay.
Good evening.
Pleased to represent Stan, Central Center for Arts and Nature, as your current president this year. And update you on what you're doing for the next couple of months for the community. And we're going to gallery open since we met last, right after we met last month. The art gallery opened on Valley Street with the exhibits, and we've had a couple of workshops already. Stone carving and in the company. And then we're setting up now to start having classes. We have art journaling class workshop coming up, and a couple others that have been contacting us actually. But we'll be putting out now a call for teachers classes. We have requests for that, and one today for music classes. The grandchildren, 4 or 5 different instruments. We're like all at once. We're trying to get this started and do it properly, not just, oh, there's a class and there's a class, and have a system and we can know what we're doing. They're very excited about that. The visitor center is going well too. People are getting the brochures and seem to appreciate that being at the gallery as well. For April, we're having Earth Day this coming Saturday on the Scan Land. You may have seen the flyers around town. We're gonna have Bluebird Box Building, which was with a local woman, that's young woman, a high school student who's helping with the project to put this together. You can, quantities are limited, but you can buy them, but build one for Scanland and then they'll build one for themselves. So we'll be getting Bluebird boxes, Scanland. Of course, there's hiking, forest bathing, if you haven't heard of that, forest bathing. I didn't know, I had to look it up. But it's really more than just being physically out in the woods, it's getting to the woods and using all your senses when you're out there. It's very relaxing and peaceful, but just reminding people to stop and do those sort of things. Hammocking, there will be hammocks out there to do the same thing. And then some helpful things, removing invasives, moving some scraps and some tree planting and removing some old barbed wire that we want to take it out of the way. So that's Earth Day this Saturday, Scanland, 8 to 2. Also this month is at Victory Hall is a play, All Bark No Bite. This is Persimmon Tree Players, which is a playwright group from Savannah County that has been doing a sublet plays with Scan a couple, 3 times a year. They're the last weekend in April and the first weekend in May. Also in May, we have the music and merriment, celebrating our founders. We originally called it Fiddle Fest, but it turned out we have more bluegrass music with fiddlers. Would you like to speak on it, Nancy, since this is yours?
Yes, so this is the 20th or 21st year that Stan has been in business, and Mary Hardy, some of you know, or new, she would have been 100 on the 26th of May. So we decided to do a festival on the 24th, commemorating the founding of Scan. And her family will actually be here. They have a family band. Her daughter is not only a musician, but a quilter. So we're tying a lot of the town into this festival. So it's on the flyer, and I think you just got the gist of it.
You'll see these around town very soon. So that's in May. And I think the other thing is, quickly, June is in, Pollinator Days in June, we'll be participating in that. And we also mentioned the Playwright Festival that is in August. It's local, people have submitted short plays, and it's a collaboration with Victory Hall players, Scan, and Persimmon Tree players. And that's pretty cool for the Playwright Festival in Scottsville. So those are the things that we're doing. Also wanted to mention, just changing gears, totally change gears. Change hats. It's come to my attention that the town has support in their budget for local nonprofits. It's called local agency support for community-based nonprofits of $3,000. My understanding is last year to 3,000 went to Boys and Girls Club, and Scan is now respectfully requesting to be considered. for the use of those funds. It's in their fiscal year budget, which ends soon. Help support the numerous and varied activities that you just heard, that we do and support. For example, on the Scanland, we've had a grant, Virginia Outdoor Fund, to do mowing and bush hogging, and it's a kind of an interim year. They didn't renew on the exact dates every year, so this year it's $2,500. Contract that we have to keep it mowed and so forth. So things like that, it would really help. It'd be separate from what we do at Victory Hall. I think what other things might be in that. So anything else you can, yeah. I don't know the process, being new here, and my understanding it's a new process for you all as well for it to be in your budget, but we're putting in a request.
Can you answer that, the process to apply?
Yeah, so we have accepted that policy. At the end of the day, it would be like a town council on the amount. So what I would advise before the end of the year, as you see fit, make a selection or to give staff members direction on the funding amount on that budget line would actually be what I'm going to say that. Yeah, we could have. I could send you something basic with information, and you're all familiar with SCAN, but to formalize it. You could fill that out and then I could share that with the town council as part of their process, ahead of whatever date seems appropriate for the council.
Okay.
Would you send that to us or goes?
I'll send that to you as president.
Pardon?
I can send that to you as president.
Greatly appreciate the consideration.
Classes gonna be downstairs or the.
Both. Right now, we do have classes in the Victory Hall. We have Charlottesville Ballet. From 3 years to adult. We have drumming, yoga, and we have a dance instructor that gives private lessons. So we will be adding the art classes for the gallery. Art gallery, but if they need a larger space, we would use the Victory Hall, and then someone would be using. I would want to be adding more music now that we put out formal requests for teachers to come in. Do the music. Like some of them want a small class, 5 or 6 students for the art, which would fit nicely in the gallery, but some have said up to 15.
Right.
And then we would need to spread out. We'll also have some on the Scanland.
Right.
Art and art. Just saying that. And then I don't know if you're I'm still here, bring up the lease renewal. Steps. Where our lease renews September 1, but it was in the lease that we did last year that we would have a 90-day period of negotiation. On the next year's lease, which would begin June 1.
Yeah, and I might advise council last time, since the end of the day. Oh, we have two council members, so it's required since it's a town property to have a public notice on any rentals you do. So it lengthens out a police process where we would actually have a public notice, have a public hearing, and then come to a decision as council on a lease. Last year was the first year that we followed that process correctly, which included a public notice. Previous years, it was just handled by a town administrator. The most clear process I might recommend is something similar to last year, is to have council members having a discussion with SCAN about the lease itself, and then having something drafted that could be put on public notice and then move through just this Virginia code requirements for leasing a municipal property this way.
So at what point do we have this discussion with SCAN? It would be at a workshop, town council, a separate meeting?
Last time we had 2 council members. So there was no requirement for quorum and public notice, and then members of SCAN, which allows some flexibility. I might suggest that especially since we have an early time to get a draft going. And then presenting something to the town council that seems agreeable to move forward with actually calling a public notice. That might be more efficient.
Thank you. The ways the way, but last time it got really bunched up at the end and. And rushed
I
through
just
it.
want to commend your scan of the town cleanup was this.
Oh,
I
thank
think that was, and that was nice to have that. Hopefully have that regular, good to have it twice a year, but I know there was a lot of trash picked up,
Thank you, I
especially
appreciate it.
outside the town, more so.
Yeah.
than inside. But
Thank you.
yeah.
I didn't list everything that we're doing.
Mhm.
So. Gotta be mindful of your time, but. Thank you again. So I'll hear from you regarding the lease and the request.
Yeah,
Okay.
it might be appropriate next meeting, maybe for council to discuss a date that they might, or council members they might want to delegate this responsibility to. And then you could start in the early summer on having discussions on this, so we don't hit against that wall the night day. And that might be the most appropriate way to just be very clearly processed, for council itself also.
We can put that on the agenda for Monday's meeting.
Yeah.
And see which way to go with that.
Gives you a week to look at your calendars.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the formal market change in Thomas. Okay, come on, let's go. We're going with that. James, thought you sitting back there. Yeah. I couldn't see that. Thank you.
All right, first up on the thing that we have going, we had it going last summer and as the months warm up. We're gonna start our networking events again. First one's coming up April 30th at the brewery. And the brewery is being so kind, we were planning it to get professionals and business owners and anybody that wanted to meet business owners to come out and meet and greet and talk and converse, but the brewery has been kind enough to recognize us as a nonprofit and support us with 20% of the 10%, 20%, what a certain percentage of the proceeds from that night to donate to the chamber. So that's much appreciated. So mark the calendars for April 30th. Come down, it's a Wednesday night, but come down for a beer or two and just meet the people that are supporting the town through their businesses. Sunday, May 18th, we're planning, we're at the kind of putting it together as fast as we can. We did it last year, put it off for various reasons. This year, a plant sale at the market. We have quite a few details to work out, some more details will come on that. Not just plant sale, but plant, maybe goal is to get it going on a more annual basis and grow it to the point where it's almost more of a home garden show type event. So landscapers and green industry professionals in general being out there. And then a big change that's going to take a lot of work for us. Later in the fall, we just started working on it. Well, we've been working on it for about a month now, but a wine festival for the October 19th. So it's way into the fall, but there'll be a lot of planning involved and it should be good. One thing for the future, I'm gonna be out of town next week or next month at this our regular meeting time, so we'll be postponed, which puts our meeting date one meeting after next month's work session. That might not be a whole lot to report next month. Right? Got it.
Any questions?
Well, you never mentioned the trees.
Oh yeah, I got a few more trees tagged. There's still a few more to come. I had another meeting with a designer that's gonna help put out a trifold pamphlet explaining how to navigate the site. Once you there's a QR code on the tree tag that you can take a picture of. And it'll take you to a website that can tell you about the tree, the Latin name, and then if you click on that Latin name, it'll take you to the Virginia Tech website, telling you more about that tree, and there's a map on there, you can see where the next tree is, so forth, so forth. But got a few more put up. I think Luke is with some more in Scanland, from the Scanland down the trails to town. And his goal is to have his up on his family by Earth Day so people can enjoy it, and so I'm sharing that goal with him. But yeah. Try them out, if you have any suggestions, part of that pamphlet of developing will be to, I'm hesitantly listing my email address for suggestions or comments, or information to add to that tree if somebody knows a little bit more history about it than I do, or if there's a tree that they want to nominate, we want to make that possible for to add trees in the future. Yep.
But thanks for all you do, the Lord.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can get foremost smart man, man. Well, I've been doing this week.
So first, I wanted to say that we had our opening day on Saturday, April 12th, and that was, I think, a huge success. We had approximately 350 people come to the market who purchased some stuff. We had 3 vendors who sold out completely and 2 vendors who almost completely sold out. So that is always really exciting to hear. We had live music that day and that went over really well. I think I had a lot of people tell me that they enjoyed it and I thoroughly enjoyed it. We had live t-shirt printing as well that day and live stem cutting, which I think was a lot of really fun activities to bring people over. So that was, I think that was a really great report and something that I think the vendors really enjoyed as well, and I really enjoyed working with these particular group of vendors. They're really great. People are really coming. I have been working on advertising throughout Facebook and Instagram, so I've been improving our advertising techniques and making sure to get the word out. Right now, we're currently looking for rotational vendors, so vendors who might not be able to commit for the full market season. They can rent this, they can have the space for the day that they choose to be there for $20 for a 10x5 space or $40 for a 10 feet by 10 feet space in our center aisle of the market. So if you all happen to know anyone who might be interested in being a vendor, we accept artisans and producers primarily, and it would be really great to have them. We're also looking to have a yard sale at the end of the month on April 26th. So if you all happen to have any old toys or clothes or furniture that you might want to sell, we're looking to host a yard sale at the back of the pavilion where we typically have tent space set up. For $20, we're looking for 10 vendors in particular who are interested in that. And one final thing we're advertising for is, excuse me, right. No, we have Tina Foods, who's really great. We also have Otaka, who came along with Tea Dogs, who's
Are they gonna be, do you rotate those throughout the year, or are they in for the year?
So Tina Foods, they're there every day to sell their products, I believe. So we're collaborating with them this year at the market. Oh, the final thing I did want to mention for advertising for is we are doing a Earth Day theme for our market this week. So we're having giveaways for younger kids, a little bit older kids, and the adults. So it will be stickers, buttons, like pins, and seeds. So we highly encourage sustainable practices and reusing stuff or reusable practices as well, and we will be looking to implement that. Another really exciting development is we had a site visit on March 18th from Bama Works, who is a local grant organization, and we are looking to have a grant to obtain an award from the grant to get, I do have agreements for the farmers market pavilion, specifically fans, lighting, anything that is for maintenance and beautification. As some might know, the fans are missing some blades and the lights could use some updating as well for both safety and aesthetic reasons, for both safety and aesthetic reasons. So they said that the award will be announced in June, and keep your fingers crossed that hopefully we can get some of that money to go towards improvements. The next thing I wanted to report on is that we have a local electrician coming on May 9th who will actually be there to replace the fans. Especially with those with the missing plates, those are something that concern a lot of people and me personally, primarily for a safety reason, as I said, also for aesthetics. So he will be there to replace those and make the pavilion a safer and hopefully draw more people in as well. We also had our vendor meeting last month on March 22nd. So that was something that I wanted to implement to help create an introduction to myself to the vendors and also have them familiar with our rules and regulations and our fee structure. And I'm looking to have that implemented once a month so that vendors can collaborate with each other. We can collaborate together as market manager and vendors and hopefully get some more ideas to bring people in and to hear any questions or concerns that they might have. Finally, since communication, that was one of the biggest concerns that was expressed during that meeting. I have been using Canva to create newsletters and send that out to vendors every week so that they get updates from the farmers market. And that way it creates more communication. And I've been told from a few vendors that they really appreciate having that newsletter and hearing all of the exciting updates that are happening in the market. So I look forward to more of an exciting season with you guys. And if you didn't have the chance to make it to the market on opening day, I highly encourage that you come any other Saturday. We're open from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And I hope to see you there.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
You said 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Is that correct on
Yes.
Saturday? Is there any like in the city of Charlotte, they do a farmers market, I think on the Wednesday or Thursday evening, and they do it in the middle of the week, because there are a lot of people go out of town on the weekend. They're not gonna be here. Do you have any idea, maybe waiting for the middle of the week, that maybe people get the opportunity to get to that way they won't miss out on it because they're only going out of town on the weekend. If you have more than one day a week, also the opportunity to bring in more living.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something to consider. I wanted to see first how, it's been brought up before, and I wanted to see first how opening day went and what the attraction was for customers coming in, for vendors, and maybe having a midweek market would be better.
It also gives you an opportunity, if you have a vendor who's already committed to another location on a Saturday, they may be able to make it in that middle of the week there. So for example, let's say that Alex has a business, he got to be here every Saturday, but he really wants to do something, come in the middle of the week. I mean, any day, it's just giving people more opportunity than one day. Because 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. it's a good time, but sometimes people's kids play sports, activities, stuff like that. So just an idea.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something to consider. Thank you.
It's 1 o'clock time, you're finishing up, is that a hard stop, are you letting people continue to sell, continue to be there after 1 o'clock?
So I try to be as flexible as I can with the vendors and try to give them as much as possible. I highly recommend that you stop at 1 o'clock, and if there's an event happening, say at 1:30, I would definitely put it at a hard stop. But if you have a quick transaction that's happening where you're in the middle of, someone's in the middle of paying, I will allow vendors to stay beyond that. But most times they just end up picking up around 1 o'clock.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
It's great. Farmers wanted to know, we really good time.
Yeah.
Mr. Vice Mayor, thanks for letting me speak. I just want to say, if what I saw on Saturday is any indication of how the farmer's market's going to be for the coming season, it's going to be a bang up thing. I was really impressed by this young lady, as my wife and I, we couldn't find parking at the tavern, which was probably good because it causes people to park on Valley. And if you park on Valley, you're walking past businesses that are open, which is really good. But I want to compliment this young lady. We approached the market. She came right up to us with a big smile on her face, introduced herself and said, "I'm the new farmer's market manager." And I was looking at the budget and my immediate reaction is, she's underpaid. So those are my comments. It was a great farmer's market and it's only going to get better this season.
You're welcome. I was there too, I think I was down there for about 3 hours observing, and the vendors looked happy. There's a lot of different places that you usually don't see in Scottsville, so all the work that was put into this, especially with the advertising, I think that's really helped, and congratulations on a successful opening day. Mighty nice. All right, agricultural review board.
Pretty standard meeting, had some applications come through, or requests come through, and I believe we approved everything. Everything's looking good, and prepping for inventory, and it's about it. Not as vocal as our previous ARP representative, but I think I got everything there.
Planning Commission, Dennis, let's go.
Yes, this last week in the planning commission, we talked about a comprehensive plan. As we are nearing completion of the comprehensive plan. We also talked to another representative of our Sky folks that we talked to here. That's somebody to talk there. We talked a little bit more extensively. We also got sad news that another planning commissioner will be leaving, Commissioner Strassner, so we will have 2 vacancies on the planning commission. So those out there that live in the town, we are in need of 2 more planning commissioners. And that's something that Shannon's is going through. She'll be here through June.
I have a question for her to give us a notice following our policy. I'm still waiting on that. She mentioned pretty brief that she was gonna resign. She promised to provide a resignation. And then it might be appropriate. I forwarded an email to the council earlier today. We received a request to be considered for planning commission, in this case, Karen. And I invited her tonight, just to introduce herself. Sent that around 12 today.
Great.
Yeah, I'd love to serve. We moved in Casey Carrigan. Okay. Shannon, we've been here about 3 years. We live on Poplar Spring, right near Patton's, all along county. So we're in Scottsville, but kind of that area of town, yes, I can represent.
That's great.
Thank you for coming tonight. That's here we have the meeting.
One down, one to go. want to thank you, Will, for some of the, parameters for.
Sorry, I couldn't be more help.
No, well, one of the questions also came up, I know you could have one town council on planning commission, that's right. Can you have two?
I think you have to amend the code, but I don't know the answer.
Oh, yeah, just wanted, in case we really got desperate.
But with
I'm not
that,
interested, but
with that, the one you all still have a forum.
yeah, sorry, we really like.
The one you've got 3 year business.
But for the,
Now we got four, perhaps.
Yes.
You're in, you bodies.
government services and parks and recreation, if you want to come out.
Well, the government service, and this is, this is difficulty, but they spend a lot of time on maintenance and the lack of it, so we're not on the same page as, maybe the town administrators were. There's concerns about maintenance in the town, and I could go into them, but basically it's about priorities and finishing things and getting things done in a timely manner. One of the members is so frustrated he resigned because he felt like things were not getting done. And I agree with them to some extent. There's some things getting done, probably they don't know what's being done, but some of the major things that need to be done are not being taken care of or not being finished. And I've talked to Javier several times about these kinds. But anyway, there's the lines in the parking lot, the trees, the tree pits, the Canal Basin Square, the mowing, the weed eating. So there's a lot of these things that are not the visible things that are not being done. And part of it is I don't think he's gotten all the supervision he probably could have. He's not as self-directed as I was hoping. But anyway, there's concerns about the maintenance, and we spent most of our time that we came up with a list of about 20 things that we wanted to do over the winter, and most of them did not get done. And so now that mowing season's here, they probably won't get done, and so that was a concern about what is the priorities. So anyway, I'm not sure what the answer is, but the committee was very invested in maintenance. And it's not on the same page as what's being done, the reality. So anyway, that might be something we discuss as a town council, how to get things done in a timely manner, how to get them done right, and to take pride in our time.
Council President, a quick question. In my understanding, the town maintenance works under the.
Right, exactly.
But it does not work for the.
No, he doesn't. We just advise.
I guess I'm unclear why the government services is advising.
Well, going way back, they raised the issue about a year ago about the lack of maintenance in town. And they were very involved in selecting a maintenance person. And they were very involved in interviewing and selecting and working with them, and wanted to be more involved with coming up with what needs to be done. And that was not, and we came up with a list of things to be done during non-mowing season, and they were not followed through on. And that was the problem.
One of the really reasons I mentioned it, having been around a long time, it's been a fairly common problem of, not recently, but I mean, over a long standing time period between the elimination between who's in charge of the maintenance worker and how.
Well, he's definitely in charge.
And I'm just saying that not just now, if we go back a few years, we've had other issues.
Oh, yeah.
Are you the representative then to talk to him or?
No, but people come to me a lot, and some come to him directly, but and I go to Javier a lot, and a lot of times he does follow through on things. But it's a matter of priorities and taking care of things, not on an irregular season, when things are not being taken care of. But now that he's in the swing of things, with hopefully going to be weed eating and mowing and things like that, but there's a lot of things that just haven't been finished and taken care of. And, you know, and I've heard it from several businessmen, and I've heard it from downtown people about this, that, and the other. And I could point out a bunch of things, but I don't know what the solution is. Because one of the guys who came up with that, he, and I thought we agreed, that he had a list of things to be done each day and whatever, and a lot of those were not being done.
And this, I mean, it's legitimate, what you're saying, they're legitimate issues.
Yeah.
It's more a matter of how we are
Right.
facing with each other,
Right.
and how we're communicating. And,
Yeah. Oh, I agree.
And what the proper channel is.
Well, we know the channel, but I don't know if the channel's.
So, yeah. Just for the record, I feel like I've been much more communicative than predecessors. And I feel that our employee has been excellent. I included in the staff report a diligent list of what he did last month. He, as most of our staff, has had to play a lot of catch up, do a lot of changes, do things properly.
Yeah.
And we're wrapping up on a season where he'll get stuck on lawn work. I provided a year where I wanted to show you what we could do with management and staffing of a member, but I do inherently believe that we have an outsized how do I put this? We have high quality we want in this town in regards to our maintenance, that I do not see budget or staff time that compensates for that amount. We discussed it before as a group, even with government services, about contracting.
Yeah.
Alleviate some of that. I think, again, I will say, and I said it when I started off, a second maintenance man if you want to do this type of quality maintenance. But it makes it very difficult to also retain staff when they aren't addressed or when they aren't fully aware of how diligently they work for the town.
Right.
He's a goose, he's a golden goose.
Oh, I think this list you were talking about, and you know, not taking sides here or anything, this list is recommendation. Is it feasible for one person to do, or is just a list?
Yeah, good point.
I mean, you said in the office you was unable to do it, I mean. I understand that, you know, you might have a list of things you need to do, but you have to take into consideration, I mean, is this list. I mean, is it feasible or is it?
Good points.
I mean, it's just too much, because you know, it's only so much a person can do in 8 hours.
Right.
Well, I've been very happy with Pam's work so far,
Yeah.
and maybe just to sit down, reprioritize, and see some changes, and that's fine. I think I don't picture him, you know, I'm not super familiar with his work, I see him around town, I think he does a good job, but I don't picture him going, you know, no, I'm not gonna do that, you know, I think. Maybe just if the committee wants to meet with him during work or something.
Yeah.
And just say, hey, this is kind of where you dropped the ball, this is where you didn't. I think it'll be effective.
We've offered that, and I agree with, it might be more work than one man can handle. And there was a recommendation last summer, I believe, that hire a high school student during the summer to help with the grass and weed eating and things like that. So I do think there's peaks and flows that, you know, sometimes they're really busy, other times they're not busy. But I do think he could probably use some support.
I heard recently, in recent times, you used to contract out a lot,
Yes.
more so than you do now, of course, that costs money.
Right. The grass at Canal Basin Square or even the trash. Can be contracted, there's a lot of things that could be contracted.
So then you have to pay for it.
Yeah, right, yeah, I know that, but that's been a conversation all along, it's what can we?
My impression is you stop doing it because of the money.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, well,
And I've been pretty diligent with government services, sharing input, reporting and using that as a way to manage employees. But again, I really stand on, there's a lot of work to do here for.
There is, we have a lot of public property for a small town.
Oh, I totally agree with that.
And I think I think getting things done and getting them done on time is a concern. For example, just like, the bathrooms. both, all of them are closed now, and, you know, they should be open this time of year full time. And, I just feel like that there's people who come to town and they have no place to go, they have to go to I put a sign up, but they have to go to, Doria Park to go to the bathroom, so I just think that there just needs to be a lot more, I mean, oversight and structure for him and more, you know, things that he has to be assigned and held accountable.
So, but an example in that, I don't wanna lengthen out the meeting, but we winterize like we have issues,
Right.
and then those take his list of other responsibilities he wants to address, and they get put on the back burner. Both of our bathrooms are having issues with plumbing. Again, we're now hearing that maybe some of them need to get reworked.
Yes,
And then the
we
most
need to
recent
contract
one we
with
got
that.
fixed almost 13 grand. So we're again hitting the issue where we have limited staff and infrastructure that I'm starting to see is changing on us.
And then you got like, $13,000 to put into a budget that you're on a string with. Is kind of hard.
Yeah. I mean, we just need to look at ideas of what we do. We might want to have a maintenance day where we can have volunteers, you know, do some weeding or spraying or, you know, taking care of roots. I think there's just a lot to take care of next time.
Yeah, I think, you know, we have a responsibility to prudently manage this town as we've been elected for, and unfortunately, the cards we've been dealt.
It is.
You know, are some financial constraints. I think that we have a good employee, willing to work, which is, you know, a miracle to find. If we are behind on cutting grass, I think that's, you know, and it's not what we want, but I think that's something that we have to kind of live with for a little while.
Yeah.
As opposed to hiring another maintenance person, which is something that's just not in the cards. So.
I mean, it's late in the day since the last guy we had him, who wouldn't even clean bathroom, so at least we have guys willing to do some of the physical labor.
Well, I think the government services, and I'm sorry to say that you lost, you know, one of your committee members, but
yeah,
I think, and continue to be diligent in the town, continue to be wise, and please keep making your suggestions and recommendations to council and to Javier. And Javier, of course, take those and run with them. And at the end of the day, let's see what gets done. Don't wait to approach it, I think. Any other questions?
No, I do think there's going to be always a challenge keeping this town looking good.
Don't see anyone
Oh,
from.
rather go to the park. The parks are looking good, especially parks are looking good. So that's one thing. He's done some in the parks too, so that's good. There's a lot of some issues in the park that need taken care of. But right now, the park is open. It's got signs, it's got rules, it's got maps, and it's you know, the trails are in pretty good shape. I go out there weekly at least, and you know, there's some big things that need to be done, but the park is in good shape. So you know, I'm pretty pleased with it. And right now we're taking a pause. The park committee is taking a pause. I don't know when we're going to do next, but we will start sometime in the spring or something.
Thank you. I don't see anybody from emergency preparedness here, so we'll move on to the treasures, events.
I haven't been able to read the three, I can't read for it, pardon me. We make it to
I didn't skip over. Bill Dolman. Okay.
In the meantime, I've been attending, just to kind of keep everyone in the loop. They've been primarily focused on, and I shared the sponsorship list, town council members, but they've been focusing on Fridays on the canal. I advise that we support them. I've been really impressed with the work. That's a chair that their day job is that type of work. So we've been moving forward with the summer concerts there at Canal Wilson Squares. They've been receiving donations and already have already their band schedule set up. So I included the sponsorship list to kind of give an example of the type of work they've been doing. And then, if you're at home and you go through the email, the link to the actual website is down there. It's really impressive work they're doing. I think, from what they told me this last weekend, they were starting to hear back from people around town and the surrounding areas. So we might have a concert series. We'll have a concert series with crowds here that I think will be a big economic boost during our tourism season. I've been really impressed with the committee's work and with their interests and their passion on this. I mean that sincerely. It's kind of impressive what they put together in a month and a half.
I recently attended an emergency preparedness class, I believe it was.
Yeah.
You wanna
So
talk about that now, or you wanna wait for you to report?
So it's a good thing. So recently, VDEM, Virginia Department of Emergency Management, essentially FEMA for the state, decided that they wanted to do these general classes over at the Wilder School, which is the public policy school for the state. So they held a series of 3 different classes on emergency management. The format wasn't something where I would come out certified or ready emergency manager, but it's that generalist kind of education, kind of give you a little bit more of a footing to at least be able to talk to the experts who do the actual work. So I wrapped up last session, I believe it was last Wednesday. Giving me a little bit of a basic understanding and much more better foundation. I would say that any generalist, be it a council member or a town administrator or staff member, would benefit from that, especially once you end up being in that nexus where you aren't for example, the emergency manager for the county of Albemarle, but you will have to interact with them very carefully in a serious situation. So hopefully they'll do that year over year, and that's an opportunity that is afforded to any town or municipality. Thank you.
Anything specifically you can bring back that affects us? For example, did you meet with other town administrators in your class, or was it predominantly preparedness folks in the other municipalities?
It was much more geared towards town administrators. For example, Richmond and Chesterfield had their elections offices, thinking about emergency management. In a different case, they had their economic development too, since they end up being kind of a bridge between the small business administration after an event to try to get out loans or assistance. And then you had some people who were just almost doing continuing education, different EMs that were very familiar with it, but kind of wanted to get some fresh eyes on it. My advice from that was that I believe the town could have pretty consistent. I don't think we're there yet. Communication with the county emergency manager, since documenting before, during, or after a disaster would involve a lot of collaboration with the county, almost like the previous grants. A lot of things have to pass through the county, so having some type of good communication with them in a serious situation would help, especially with after the disaster happens and having to repair and take care of the town. But it was informative, I'd say, and gave me a little bit more assurance about my role here, since it was not my background in education. Thank you.
Minutes committee.
Oh, and I think we've heard a lot of the reports already from the scan folks, and Javier just mentioned the Fridays on the canal. One will be a busy weekend, this will be on May 23rd on a Friday. Scans got the events on Saturday. So nothing that you haven't already heard, including display being practiced downstairs at Scottsville. But nothing to report. Beyond that, this summer's coming, it's gonna get busy.
Really good treasurer's report, seeing you do the start session over here.
Treasury report.
Yes, sir.
So what I wanted to show you, what I've shared with you was the previous budget projection from February, just to give some context, since it wasn't discussed during March. Additionally, I want to update that in late March, I had a conversation with county administrators about a request for assistance with the upcoming levy, pump house concrete treatment and sealing. I spoke with the assistant county administrator that I've had most of my interactions with. And they will speak with the direct county administrator. And get back to us on the feasibility. This is almost separate from what Supervisor Price discussed with the council last month about an additional item, which is the memorandum of agreement in regards to levy maintenance. So this last year on our budget line, it shows up as about 20,000 that we received from the county. And then again, broad strokes I've discussed before. Our general maintenance just to kind of run and keep the lights on in our budget. It's that budget line flood control is about 30,000. So it covers a good chunk, but not everything. Just from the most basic, keeping an internet line in there, diesel, small stipend, and then just general maintenance, lawn care, et cetera, for the pump house and the levees and stuff. Beyond that, Mayor Smith was following up with Mike Brewer from that conversation with us, as I said. About future discussion on that MOA. Beyond that, we finalized a capital improvement plan with Scottsville and Tin Car. One aspect I think that was missing was the insight that Tin Car naturally has for so many years on the levy and different kind of wouldn't be capital improvement, it'd be capital maintenance, but I think it served in one way as illustrative of everything that could in the future be needed in regards to capital maintenance. And then it fulfilled to the point something I learned during the classes I attended for emergency management, that we should be inventorying all the items we have in our system in case you ever need to do reporting on repairs to those items. Something as simple as your fences, your pumps, your gates. If you have some kind of failure, you would want to have those itemized for any reimbursement. Beyond that, I'll be speaking with PCR soon. I'm trying to reach out to them. Again, the BCU class also had representatives from PCR there. It was helpful to network a little bit and do that. Beyond that, I can move over into Councilor Bill Heisen discussed with me about a week and a half. He wanted just some figures on what revenue could be generated if there was an increase on meals tax for transit occupancy. On page 3 at the top, what I'll show is that our current tax rate for meals tax is 6.5%. And for this fiscal year, we're expected to generate $292,000. At a 6.5% tax rate for next fiscal year, 25-26. My projections expect a flat 300,000 in revenue. Third bullet point shows that if we were to increase that, for example, by 0.7.5, you would look at 337, which would be 37,000 more than the previous number. In regards, that's our largest, one of our big four for tax revenue. Beyond that, transit occupancy is much smaller, but still part of our tax structure here. So currently it sits at 8%, but this year we're expecting 15,000 in revenue from transit occupancy. That's used to be lumped in, but at this point it's really just Airbnbs and Chester as a bed and breakfast, as a traditional bed and breakfast. If you were to stay at 8% for next year, we would expect 15,500, just 3% interest rate. And then the last piece was if you were to increase it to 9%, you would be able to generate 17,500. There's some figures to kind of chew on in regards, but they would be much more useful if they were included in the budget projection to kind of see how we could, close the gap we're talking about.
So there hasn't been any progress in getting the supervisors to add some money to the levy maintenance fund?
Not yet.
Okay, because we missed the budget, so. But it seems like Mr. Pruitt was very interested in doing that, given the crucial nature of what you're asking.
And then a major piece of advice would be as you continue to have discussions with supervisors. I think any discussion in the future about increased support annually from the county. I think it's worthwhile to have that conversation. He seemed very open to it. And I think understood the collaborative nature of the town and the county with our levies as well.
About the meals tax, you jump from 6.5 to 7.5, and I would like to see what it is for 7.0. That's what Charlottesville is, and we are a tourist town, and that's what Charlottesville charges for meals tax. So it'd be good to know what we would get for 7%. And the same with the occupancy tax, you jump from 8 to 9, but we can go half a percentage point at like 8.5 and see where we're at with that. I think every little bit helps because looks like we're down 70,000 for next year. And if we can, get, here 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, do it. I think that would be really, really good for us to have. But I do think we need to, as much as possible, get as much money as we can from tourists.
Yeah, so at a half point, you would, instead of generating 37,000, you generate about 18,000.
Okay.
And then for transit occupancy,
Right.
at a half point, it would be 16,000 instead of the 17,500
Right.
that I show there.
Okay.
I can continue with the American Tower contract renewal, if there are other questions. So,
Javier, just one thing I was going to say about this. Given the fact that you're leaving. I think, and I come back to the council, it's really important for us to kind of take action in terms of really thinking about the budget. We need to really do so. And if you, Bill, were you suggesting going back to what you just said, as that you want to see another option? Because I think it's fine if we have the 7%, those two options.
Yeah, that's what I would say, 7%, because that seems to be similar to a lot of tourist towns. And you need the money.
could I share with you guys next week,
Yeah.
a budget projection, including that 7% that Councilor Heiss recommended?
I would even go, yes, first of all, I'd say yes, but I would also be interested in your recommendation, like you as the county administrator. Understanding what recommendations do you have?
Yeah,
Different options.
I would like to discuss with the town council, I think that American Tower contract should be heavily considered. Additionally, any tax increase you had, you would, I would first consider the American Tower contract. Beyond that, if you were to consider taking out funding from LGIP, that would be a second option. The benefit of also increasing, despite the political consequences, that you would be taking less out of your LGIP account, and then through the year you would be receiving a larger monthly revenue from your tax base. But I would want council to highly consider the American Tower contract, look at the 3 different scenarios there. Because I think we're approaching a point where it might be more appealing than we thought in previous years as an agreement between this tower provider and the town.
I was just looking at it, but this would have been a great issue for government service committee to tackle. Because a lot of them have really a lot of experience with budgets. And maybe they could review it and come up with something because it's beyond my comprehension. But I know they've been involved with comprehensive plan, the capital improvement plans and the budget. And I know it sounds like you've got Ms. Morris to do this, which is fine, but I just think they have a lot of eyes on this and really a discussion about that. It'd be good to have that, because most of us don't know much about how this works. So anyway, that's it. It's just an idea that this should seem like that would be a topic for them to really discuss with and get a lot of minds going on that.
I feel pretty comfortable with presenting this scenario and assistant with Morse to the council. I think it was well thought out. There was research on it, so. But in a gap of capability, especially on my side, that is an option, but. There's some good facts there currently for town council to chew on, since at the end of the day, it's a council decision.
Yeah.
When that decision has to be made,
That one, we can make them wait, but I would advise you guys highly considering it this month. If you feel comfortable.
Next week. Next week.
Yeah, if you feel comfortable with the investigation, but we push it off to May, but this would be very informative in regards to your budget formulation. So you might even want to have a special session. You're heavily considering what's happening with American Tower in between the regular scheduled meetings and next week.
well, okay, so, here, American Tower mentioned, but where, you and our lady are actually communicating with Tower Alliance. And they are a real estate agent for the American Tower. And they've got accountants and lawyers, that's what they do every day. And you've been a part of in kind of negotiations at all.
I'm sorry.
Have you been a part of the negotiations?
I don't think there's been much negotiation. I think it's I
Mostly
think that's
fact
a
finding.
it's basically they presented you with a proposal, which is similar to what they did. How many years ago?
I think that every year they.
No, we last considered it seriously when Derek Rose was here.
Yeah, right.
And then at that point in time, we did a good analysis. We didn't, which was largely barren, but it was simple business math, and they determined, well, it wasn't good, the offer wasn't good enough. So they put them off, and so they're back again, and that's part of the game. And are we gonna talk about that now? Why don't we go to the next agenda item, and that's what we're seeing to get into, and let Eileen do what she proposed, and then we'll see where we are.
So, I think we're there now.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Ellie, would you help me with that?
You want me to?
Yeah.
I'm going to then try to take you through this as quickly as I can. American Tower is the current leaseholder on the tower. It's up off of Hardware Street near the school. What was the school up there? They have given us a proposal. This contract has been in place since 1993. It's renegotiated every 5 years for the term of the contract. The last time, as Mr. Bowling alluded to, it was 2019, I think it was negotiated. 2024, it expired. It is now up for renewal, so that's why we're talking about it. So every 5 years this happens.
And let me say too, they wouldn't be back before you unless they had a need to continue to use them. That.
Exactly.
Well, I will say, so I looked over previous contracts. I spoke to the lease rep at American Tower. Javier and I looked at some comps, or tried to get some comps in the area. One thing to note about the tower itself is that demand on that tower is declining. There were 4 carriers on that tower previously. 2 of them are not renewing, so demand is going down. We looked at comps in the area, one in Albemarle County up at Walnut Creek, one in Buckingham. Those contracts are far less than what we've been making. The rent on this contract that we have right now is, I think, a little over $2,000, like $2,100 a month. The proposal they have given us is to take it down to about $1,500 a month. And that takes into account the declining demand. There would be an impact if we did not negotiate at that lower rate and insisted on a higher rate. I think they'd have a hard time with that. And we could, there are other towers in the area. Who knows what they might decide to do should we not negotiate. So they've given us two options. One is a rent reduction. And it was interesting, if you look at the proposal, in the second paragraph, it did say, it outlines the financial terms of tower sites contracts in order to ensure the long-term stability of tower site and allow all parties to benefit. So I called the rep and I asked him to explain to me how a rent reduction would benefit the town. And that's when he explained the declining demand and the need to keep that tower up there for town communications, etc. So they had two options. One was rent reduction. We can see here. They do propose that they would add a monthly stipend of $250 for each new tenant that would sign up to use the tower. So the rent could potentially go up if new tenants were to join back up. So if we went from 2 on that lease up to 4, we'd get another $500, which would bring us back to the $2,000 that we were making before. So that reduction is really pretty reflective of the loss of clients. A 2% annual escalation. So every year we get a 2% bump in the rent as part of the contract negotiations. And they would like to add a right of first refusal provision in the contract to say that if we decided to lease the land or lease the tower to another provider or do something, that they would have the right of first refusal to match whatever offer was negotiated and make a play for the tower up there. So that's
Memory serves me right, I think they have that right now.
yes.
Yes.
The second option was a perpetual easement. So they're asking that a permanent easement be put on the land itself. The downside of that, so they would give us $450,000 cash one time that we could put, however, council and whatever recommendations would be viable for the town or beneficial to the town. The downside of that would be that that land, which is about 2 acres up there, would have a permanent easement on it. So if we ever decided to sell that land, that's not a great selling point to have a permanent easement. The other thing is, if American Tower, look at this technology, who knows how long it's viable for? We might all be on Elon Musk Starlink in the future or something like that. We don't know. If they were to get bought out, if they were to go belly up or whatnot, that easement would still stay with the property. Okay, so that's the downside. Now, when I went back to him and asked him, and I said, what about a third option? I proposed to him a long-term lease instead of a permanent easement on that land with a, sort of permanent ownership there. They wouldn't own the land, but a permanent lease is a one-time payment. So what they came back with is a one-time payment of $310,000 in exchange for a 60-year term. So that means the town would get $310,000 and would not have to negotiate the contract for another 60 years. It would give the town a really great cash infusion at a time when it's needed. It would also be sort of bird in the hand if this technology were to go obsolete, if American Tower were to decide to do something else and move out of moved their lease out of Scottsville, we would have had that money up front, and there would be no downside to that.
Well, you leave $140,000 on the table by not getting permanent easement,
Right.
so that's the downside.
And I did some math on that. And whichever way I did it, so I ran it out for 10 years, because I look at technology as probably being, you can't really project more than 10 years. And whichever way I run the math, and it was based off of calculations that Matt had done for the 2019 assessment. He recommended at that time to take the cash infusion, and it was rejected by council.
I think it was rejected because the various growth determined that it wasn't in the best interest at that time to do it. That's not from a cap analysis that we did.
Yeah.
Fairly sophisticated analysis, but I'm not really sure how applicable cap analyses are to the town of Scottsville, since you're restricted in your amount of money you can make in investments anyhow by the code of Virginia.
But what you could do with, say, that $310,000, you could say put $100,000 in an emergency fund. And Bill, you had always talked about having an emergency fund, right? So rather than put it into LGIP, put it into an emergency fund that could be used for just about anything in town. So you create a third bucket in your sort of LGIP, long-term kind of look at your financial profile. And then you could take the rest of that and put it into your capital improvements. So getting the levee fixed up, getting the farmer's market fixed up, getting capital basin squared up. You could do a lot with $210,000 in a time where maintenance of our equipment and things like that is really
and until you could sell it to them, if that's what you want to do, you could have the same restrictions that you have on a permanent easement. You have the same restrictions on a permanent easement you have on a 60-year term.
right.
Or whatever. I mean, right now it's restricted to use as a cell tower. So if the technology becomes obsolete, the 2 acres and it's restricted to a cell tower use, it's still protected if you want to use that word, quotation marks around it. But if it can only be used for a cell tower site. You follow what I'm saying? They just don't have the right to do anything they want to right now for that particular land, but they have to use it for a cell tower.
Right, and that should continue.
Yes. And
Even if you have a 60
and
with the provision that if they were to go belly up or get
and that's the
acquired or
provision that's
something,
all there now.
some of that equipment should be taken off of them.
And that's in the agreement now.
Right.
The deal is that if they leave, they have to take it down, not just the ground level, take everything off, but 1 foot below ground level. And leave it like it was before they got there.
So that's kind of the gist of it. I have done the math on this. Either way you spin these numbers, I think the cash gives you the best. If you were to take the 300,000 or the 450, if you decided a perpetual easement would be beneficial, I wouldn't recommend that, but certainly that's council's discretion. If you invest that, and I did the math at 4%, which we're earning, it still comes out to be better financially than if you take the monthly rental. The monthly rental can be used, I think right now it goes into the operational budget of the town. You could continue to do that, but it's small steps, it's $2,000 a month. If you invest some of that money at 4%, it's a whole different ballgame. But I think at a time when the town could use the cash boost, this would be a good way to get everything sort of square, if you will, and use the rest of the budget just for keeping the lights on and operational concerns.
And they're saying they want to reduce the monthly rental, what, I can't do the math, but it's.
By $600, yeah.
In your conversation with the people, did he, at any time say, is there any interest of getting more people on the, wanting to rent the town or what? Because I've noticed being in the town, in the last 5 years, my cell service went from 5 bars, and that's down like 2, so it's gone downhill. I mean, I have seen a decline. I'm just wondering, did he at any point say, yeah, we got a bunch of people wanna rent a spot on this tower? I mean, or,
So the conversation he had with me was, due to the merger on the cell towers, that reduction from 4 to 2. And then I think the reason they've been discussing with us from the comparisons we did to others, we did a good job years ago being fairly competitive in our negotiations with them. And we're probably on the top of the list of which group of costs, especially with reduction in cell towers. We have one right across in Buckingham that we use for ECC, so for communication. And then I've been trying to communicate with the county to get a little bit of insight from T-Mobile, to get some from the government, their lobbyists. They always call it something else, but essentially they're lobbyists about what insight they have on theirs.
And I forget, how many carriers can be on there? Is it 8 or 10, something like that as a max
Can't remember,
on the
but
cell tower?
yeah, it's fairly towards the top if you go up there.
Yeah.
So you're saying that Buckingham, was not only Buckingham was in existence when we first got the tower, but Buckingham has taken a lot of the load off. I think there was another tower further up or Charlottesville, I can't remember
I think
where.
there's one on Route 20 right there, almost directly across the road from, Brighton Club Road.
Yeah,
That's your,
You
yeah.
can't quite see, you just gotta kind of know
Yeah.
where it's at.
Then
Dude, 2 acres or whatever. Where exactly is it in relation to the Van Cleef nature area? I mean, is it kind of in the middle or is it off to the edge?
It's on the
top of
edge,
the hill, top of the
the
hill.
top of the hill, like the edge of the
So if we were to just let them go and take a bigger amount of money, we wouldn't be losing money if it's right at the edge of the.
We still, right now, it's a piece of land that is not used for Van Cleef. It does border Van
Yeah.
Cleef. So I don't think we lose anything from trails or anything else, and I don't think that, and Bill could probably speak more.
Bill knows, it's got a long road into it
Yeah,
and it's steep.
right.
It's a K number
Well,
one.
part of the easement, that company, they be responsible
It's
for
right by the
making the
trail.
road.
Well, they have to maintain the road, that's a good point, because it's the same road that serves the dock that was supposed to be there. I don't know if the dock ever got there yet.
and it goes up to the shed.
Well, it goes a different way, but yeah.
Does it?
But
So-
I don't like the perpetual one at all, but
Right.
well, I'm just wondering if there could be a fourth option, like a mid-term lease, maybe for 30 years and still get 150,000, and then, and we get kind of get those in between that.
You could do that.
I mean, at least we maybe can negotiate our own understanding.
I didn't
Push them a little bit.
I didn't do any negotiations. I was just fact finding.
I think the current lease gives them the option to bail out, okay?
Yeah,
So that's the danger with all this.
that's right.
If the technology changes, then you're gonna be stuck with you.
Right.
One thing I will say.
Side of property.
I didn't hear any interest in actually owning the property.
They just want a perpetual easement.
They just wanted.
And you could restrict that so that if they ever cease to use the property for a cell tower, poof, the easement goes away.
And I will note too, I did check their stock and what the news was. They had a downturn at the end of 2024. They bounced back a little bit at the early of 2025 and it's down again. So the company is, the economy is unpredictable.
Technology's unpredictable.
Technology is unpredictable, all things sort of, the commentaries that I looked about their stock seemed to say that it was solid, but there's no way to predict.
One thing I will say, having seen this for a long time. Generally speaking, in the past, and Mr. Bullock, you're the only other one around here that long, but what I would say is there's probably more of a compelling case to take a payment at the moment than we've been before. Because there is an issue again, I mean, nobody knows the future, nobody knows what's gonna happen, but the opportunity. Of changing technology that's just life.
Mhm.
But it is true that in terms of the gamble of, is it gonna be more valuable, less valuable? We know currently it's less valuable because the others have left us. And it is a guess in terms of what we would be long term, and I do thank you for the research and the information, but I would say I had been somebody for many years who has not been favorable to a one-time payment, but I would say there seems to be more of a case for a one-time payment than there has been before. And that to me is of more interest. Which one would you say that it looks different than long ago with Barry, or it looks the same to you?
World changes, move right along.
Yeah.
And I did look at the lease very quickly today, to see what it said, and it does have a bailout clause, so that they would cover anything. So that's a danger. Is that right?
I believe so.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it pretty quickly, so if the technology changes tomorrow, poof, that's the end of that lease.
And we know cell technology is changing.
Yes,
Right,
it is.
so that is a risk.
And as long as you can control the land, control the terms of the easement such that you don't have to worry about seeing, no one is a cell tower. So as long as you want to keep the cell tower, they're fine, but if you change it, you don't have a problem with the easement anymore, then you'll be okay. That makes sense, but the fact moves up. And we make it.
At the purpose of this table, a 60-year lease is more or less permanent easement.
I got a chance.
Other than you, so, but my point, again, I do think there is a case to be made for a one-time. Again, I have been somebody resistant to that in the past, and I mean, of these options, I like the 60-year option.
And that was what they came back with when I asked them about the possibility of a long-term lease. That's what they sort of brought back to the table. You could go back, but I don't know how willing the company would be able to do that. But again, I wasn't in for negotiations. I was just in for fact finding, and I thought that was a good compromise for the town to offer up to council for your decision. I know, Eddie, you had always talked about, why are we investing in new things if we can't maintain our existing things? This would be, that cash infusion would give us a way to maintain our existing things, bring them up to a good point without a huge impact on the operational budget. And that would really alleviate some pressure on the town about managing the day-to-day budget, trying to fit all these other things into it. So that seemed to me to be something that was worthwhile to bring to your attention.
Yeah, I agree with that, but then again, you can go through that. Those funds, just like cash and Jim.
Oh, sure.
Well, I think that's on our end being
But
Put it
that's,
aside.
very specific.
that's where you need full transparency,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, yes.
No, you put it aside.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
can put
put
some of
some
it aside in emergency funds so that you don't get hit in the future. If you can make your USDA fund for the levy of that 12,000 that should be in there, if you can make that whole with the USDA grant coming, not USDA, but the USDA grant coming in that could fund that levy. I guess it's.
That is an adding point. Say you were to take one of the easements, one of the either perpetual or the 60-year long-term lease. It is of course, one of the primary functions of a council is that fiscal oversight.
Yes.
And say whichever way you divide it in regards to capital needs or operating needs, hopefully capital. You would want to take the rest of it, and as Melanie and I were talking last week, to get money work for you. You could put a remainder of that into LGIP, earning about 4% a year on that. Once you have those big chunks, you actually start getting returns that are much more appealing than they were, especially a few years ago when interest rates were, as you guys tell, rock bottom.
Yeah.
The town has been remarkably consistent in preserving the Caldwell Fund since its creation. And I was trying to think when that occurred, and I asked your arm if he couldn't help me. How long, when did the Caldwell Fund come into existence? And I didn't know. It's 4 months. But it's been here for years, and for years and years, you didn't touch it at all, and then you touched it, and but you promptly set up a procedure to pay it back, so that you would keep the funds intact, to the town's credit.
Well, I think and a good point is if you're going to take money each year and put it into the maintenance fund for the levy, I would also recommend putting some into your emergency fund, just, upgrading that each year too, if you were to do something like that, so that you always have some money in that emergency fund for use for anything in the town. So I encourage you to look at, this in more detail if you'd like. There is the financial numbers of what that money would earn over 10 years. I did not go beyond 10 years, but if you want to know the details of the math, I can get you that. I've done it out by hand, and I've also make sure my math was correct by online calculators for compound interest and things like that. As Mr. Bowling pointed out, it's fairly straightforward math. It is not anything complicated.
And you're restricted in your interest that you can earn for investments that you can make by law, because the state requires you to be very, very, very conservative in what you can invest in. So this is not like the ability to go to a bank and get a CD and get 5% for as long as you want, that sort of thing. It's more restricted than that. And for the last 10 or 15 years, it's been investment returns been well under 4% in the 3% area. So, or less.
Is this gonna be available for us to vote on next week?
Yeah, if it interests the council.
I'm interested. You interested?
Yeah, let's do.
Yeah.
We didn't make that an agenda item.
I would advise you make an agenda item and have discussion prior to.
American Tower would appreciate that because we're late.
I do have one other question. If you were to take the monetary, as you suggested, as a town council, we could make, the determination of where the funds will go, instead going to the levy or whatever. Can it be set up, let's say you have an emergency fund that fund cannot be accessed and not to agreed upon the council itself.
Oh, absolutely. That would be part of it anyway.
Well, no, you can't restrict the ability of council to use it. Once the council can do what it wants to with the funds, that's why I brought up the fact that the Caldwell Fund, which is the 400-some thousand you have.
I think that's what he was saying, you might have just said it.
It is at the discretion of the council on how to spend it, and should always come to council for approval.
But if you decide, whatever you decide, you should kind of let me look at this lease again, but you kind of make sure that it's controlled by what this lease says, so that if you decide to do something, that 2 acres is restricted. If you decide, for example, to sell it, because you give them a permanent easement that's restricted for use for cell tower only, if they ever cease to do that, that's it.
Well, and if you have an inclination on one option over another, they will come back with the actual lease document for a town to sign, and that's when you really need to look at the details of the lease.
And then I think that answers Walter's questions, like, naturally, a council existing right now can't decide with the council 5 years from now. But you have the budget is the mechanism and it's your authority. Again, it's like I administer it, and that budget approval is to give direction to your staff on how to do that.
But I just want to make sure we have something set aside for the votes, make sure that you for the votes fine. Don't want to go down.
Well, the benefit of us choosing this soon is that we can add that into the budget.
You could include it in the motion, that's how it's say.
Yeah, you can take some things out of your line item budget and take the pressure off of your budget considerations if you know you have this coming in.
Tell allowance is gonna work. That's why. They're gonna do the best for them, so we gotta give us a lot of authority.
But I would say they were very fair. The gentleman who I spoke to is actually, I think he's a contractor for them, he negotiates all their leases. But he was very upfront, he did not seem like he was, trying to hard nose anything. He said, he gave me all the data about the tenants and who was coming and who was going. And I do think, Eddie, that the devil is in the details of the lease, So
Jim will take care of that.
that's right.
Well, as long as you stick to what you got, to be okay. Whatever you decide to do, for example, if you decide to take the $450,000, then you still want to be sure that you're not letting them do whatever they want to with that 2 acres. So not every season use it as a cell phone. So then you've got the ability to control it sits right next to the general nature.
Okay, we're going to the general for next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
You did a good job. Thank you.
Mr. Vice Mayor? I've got to go, but I'll just share one thing with council. I shared this with the chief. The town, last Tuesday, the town of Percival voted to disband their police department. And so I recommended the chief reach out to them because their starting range is 41 to 52. And their career range, 15 years, is 41 to 68. So there's a real opportunity to maybe find someone from there. And I did suggest to speak to council about possibly considering
It's in line now.
a relocation bonus, a relocation expense.
I know it's
Just want to share.
All right, well, this is all. Okay. Where are we now? They got 7 points.
Break out some cots.
Bale's on vacation. He's all up in the vacation, so. He's got his report in the handout, so you can go over that. So, if you made a report like that. So we can move on. Kind of trying to follow.
I think I said pretty much all I could possibly say about the terms of residency on the town council and the planning. I think I've talked more than I usually do with emails tonight. I'm interested in this American Tower still. That's an interesting thing. I don't think they'd be offered to you unless they still have a need for this. Rest assured of that. If they have a need for it, this companies have a license for their money. They can afford whatever you want to do.
Go to the research side and get it's pretty well all. So yeah.
That's all.
All right. Do you have anything left that I'm excited to talk about?
I'll keep it short because it's starting to get heavy. If you check your phone, next month we'll have the auditors come in. So they'll do a presentation during the work session. Melanie's working with them to get some adjustments for the end of the year. We have to sit down. That once we get the adjustments, we'll shift our projected for the end of the year, which usually is close to actuals based off of what our auditors say. Beyond that, one quick thing.
Can I interrupt you? We had a bunch of little hanging issues. We get all those straightened out before you leave. I just want to get all that cleared up.
Yes, I think this is the big major piece, getting those adjustments done before the part. I would say that's like if it's a list of things to wrap up, that's one of them.
And everything appears to be in order to get it done.
Yes.
Okay.
The fact that we've received it and then we're asking just for the adjustment, we're on track for that.
Okay.
For my departure. The second one, and we kind of talked about it, these were kind of in tandem. Last Thursday afternoon, we started thinking about this with numbers in regards to the American Tower. We included a report that was a little bit late, but we could kind of hit the broad strokes I can help you out, Melanie, if you're comfortable with.
Yeah, we do have a Caldwell fund, we need to make it work for us. It sits there, that's great, we do earn interest on it. We have about $158,000 in capital that needs to be done. The levy, 88,000 in 3 phases. The farmer's market, unfortunately, as prices are going up, our estimates are going up. The longer we wait, the higher these estimates are going. So you're looking probably at $50,000 with everything that needs to be done to bring the farmer's market up to grade. Maintenance necessities, we're gonna need around $20,000 to bring him to where he can do his job right. The maintenance, the farmer's market structure, we've got rotting posts, you've got the lights, you've got the fans. Again, you're looking probably around $50,000. If our maintenance department, the motor is on its last leg right now, he had a crack in the motor, they fixed it in JD Weld. You know, that ain't gonna last long. The weed eater doesn't want to start half the time he can't use it. So that's something else that needs replaced.
Talk about the shed, since we leave materials out and they deteriorate. Could be the kiosk, could be the gator, could be the old paint cans we have out there.
So, you know, a shed in itself, you're looking probably around $6,200. If, you know, we can find one of these shed places that sometimes they take returns and people move and they take it back, you may be able to get it for $2,500 or less. These are all things to look into. One of the things we did sign for the flood reserve was we read the contract
Yes.
and something that nobody seemed to
Yeah, so
realize.
one of our agreements, one of our stipulations from the agreement in 2018 was to take monies and deposit them at 2,000 each year. In agreement with into account reserve. What I recommend, and I discussed that with you pretty closely, is that we received 70,000 from the USDA grant. 50,000 of it was a grant portion, 20,000 was a loan. We took out in February of 2023, 60,000 to cover liquidity. And I immediately, once receiving that 70,000, returned that 60,000 back into the LGIP account as understood from previous town council members. We're sitting on 10,000 that's in our general fund, and like Melanie and I have been talking about. We're not making our money work. It's just sitting in our general fund. But if you throw it into your LGIP account, which Jim Bowling has stated is very safe investment tool, it's like a money market. You receive 4% on it. Beyond the fact that it would button up and it would show our fiscal responsibility in regards to our LGIP, I'll put it that way. I think it's a good use of that 10,000 that right now, especially as we have revenue coming from all our tax sources, you don't even need it for liquidity, but we could have it there, you know, this month and then next month earning 4% on it. Which, as everybody has said, earns a little bit, every little bit counts, I guess, the way it's.
And it's a stipulation with us getting that $20,000 a year from the county that we keep this reserve fund out there, which we have never done.
And counties, and rest assured, gonna ask you like that when you have a general meeting with them.
My staff recommendation, I have the ability as a treasurer to open up accounts in LGIP. Could open up one, and we have two LGIP accounts. One is just called Town of Scottsville. One's called Caldwell Fund. Shorthand, we call them both the Caldwell Fund. To have a third one and call it the Flood Reserve and infuse it right now, and you're on very good standing with the county. Put it that way.
One of the things, we're setting up $490,000 in that LGIP account.
Following the 60,000.
Following the 60 that we put back in. I've given you two scenarios. If we take the 158,000 from the LGIP account, pay it back over 60 months or 72 months at 4% with the 4% interest that we're gaining now, we're not gonna, in a sense, lose any money. Because we're gonna be paying ourselves the 4% back plus the principal. So we'll be back in 5 years, 6 years. That 158,000 will be paid back with 4% interest.
So essentially, the consideration on our side is having a policy and process with staff. As every month we're receiving revenue, instead of letting that sit in our general accounts, pulling that into the LGIP and then actually earning interest on that.
And you can piggyback that onto the American Tower. Take a vote if you have to, take that $300,000, set that into an emergency fund, set it aside, because what's gonna happen is our pumps down here are 30 years old, 30 plus years old. Once one of them breaks, they're all gonna go down at the same time. Just the pump alone is $30,000. That's not having it craned out of there to put a new one in, craned to put the new one in, and the time frame, the time that it's the cost, the manpower. So.
Because an important point we want to take away from tonight is any money you can put into an account that earns 4% is a no-brainer for the town. And then, of course, things scale in this sense. So any more amount, you have a higher return, especially since I think we have lost, it's gone the way of the dodo, those rock bottom rates we had a few years ago, which we saw the brunt of, where we weren't earning any interest, we were earning $1,000 a year on $500,000. It's like.
As far as equipment, we can probably find a zero turn from a reputable dealer used for $6,000 or $7,000. If they're in, they fix I used to work for a beverage tractor. We would bring them in, they totally tear them down, fix them, and put them out for sale. So.
What about leasing?
But
If you lease a mower, if something goes wrong with it, whoever you lease it for is responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of it. That way, if something goes down, take it back to them, they give you another one, and you could make it may cost a little bit, per month, but in the long run, it will keep you up and going, regardless.
You only need it 6 months too. You only need it 6 months too.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you get the right piece of equipment, you can use it.
What I might recommend and slate is that I do think that first action item is an easier consideration, just to move forward with the 10,000, and then we have 3,000 budgeted for this year, and at that point, you're on track for that allocation we made in agreement with flood reserve money. The larger item to consider and to review is the amelioration schedules that Melanie was nice enough to put together, and consider this a possible scenario to address multiple capital needs we have, from the levy maintenance to aging equipment for our staff member and maintenance, and then of course the farmers market that we have discussed this year on several occasions.
And the longer we wait, the thing that is the longer we wait to do this and discuss it, the prices will just go out the roof.
Okay, so it is, hasn't it?
Yes.
Okay, we can move to new topics, agenda items for the joint meeting with the board of supervisors of Baltimore County. They are coming to Scottsville on May 14th. We've got a council meeting and one workshop prior to that meeting. We got a council meeting next week, workshop on the 12th, I believe. So basically, I suggest we just all think about what we'd like to talk about Albemarle County with, go over in the next workshop. But it says an agenda item, what does an agenda have to be finalized with them?
We would want to finalize as soon as possible, because you want to give them, you want to give their staff time to kind of address some of these.
To answer your question, that means you can't wait till the work session
Right.
before the meeting to come up with the agenda.
They won't give you good answers.
Yeah, and you raise a good point.
So we basically have to take action next week.
Yeah,
So-
to the point, Councilor Payne, Bill already shared it with me over email. That I think are on track, and these might stimulate discussion since we're looking to discuss this next week, but most of them were. I can't find it now, Bill.
Most of it, yeah, stuff.
About them sharing some of that property tax revenue.
Yeah.
Taken to bolster the police in the county.
Right.
But we already have police to take care of the South of the county, use some of that money.
Yeah.
I think I believe you have to share them and sort them out.
Yeah. I don't think they're aware of how much you really do.
Yeah.
Help out in Southern Illinois, and the chief keeps really good statistics on answering calls and how many calls they answer. That saves a lot of money.
Yeah. But then again, they do cover the one shift that we don't.
Well, they do, and that's shown in the statistics too.
They flow GCC for us too. So how they can all communicate, but then also the service reports are really impressive. Jim talked to me multiple times about the amount of impact they have for the local area. Bill shared increased funding for the levy maintenance, which was that's the plan away. That discussion should continue with Pruitt and his peers.
Yeah, I'm looking.
And then discussion of VDOT resurfacing of West Village, continued discussion of the crosswalk on Route 20 and a bird, and then any traffic calming, which we've started to open up that discussion on Route 20. So I think a thorough discussion of VDOT would sort of here, since they're kind of our route to any success on this.
Yeah.
You catch my drift.
Well, they're all good topics for discussion, let's go ahead and do that Monday at the council meeting, finalize that part of the journey with all the questions, so we might pop it later this week. Down code on parking and street.
Would it be appropriate, considering the time I'm halfway through my memo and I could provide something more useful next Monday?
Garrett, so.
Yes, sir.
Anybody have an objection to that? Sounds good, okay.
But just to go back one, I pretty console people about. Maybe we don't have rules, but there's not supposed to be any parking on the street at nighttime, especially, I don't know about overnight parking. But also mainly for residents and shop owners, they're not supposed to park on the street at night. I don't know if that's a rule or not, but I've heard that.
Shortly, I have a very thorough back and
Okay.
forth with the resident that was
Okay.
concerned about this.
Right,
There is no zoning there specifically limiting in that aspect. I wrote a memo in the response. The brevity of it is we have a SUP on one of our apartments that does require that,
okay,
but that limit isn't limited to other parcels on that in Maine. Again, anytime you have an SUP and you have a parking cert, you throw that condition in there. Because I still enforce like I did 20 years later
Right.
on the apartments right next to us.
well, we might want to come up with something about that, for future, because it's kind of iffy. You see, you park and can't park and work in your park. I remember we went through that just about a year ago, about 2 hour parking, and we got rid of that.
You were still saying we're gonna talk about it next week.
Yeah, right,
I'll share some material.
right.
Okay, think about what you want to talk to the county about. No carryover topics.
Well, but what about the sidewalk thing too? You gonna look into that too?
Yes.
And what could be in the south? My concern has always been across the street here, we got like 5 trash cans in front of that place there, and we already got a town trash can there. It's real junky, and you got this Barbie thing there that's been there forever. And I just think we need to have some sort of understanding of what can be on the sidewalks in our town and make it look nice.
I'll include that in the memo, and to the point he emailed me, he's gonna clean that out for us.
Okay.
Okay, if it's nothing else,
So I got one other thing. And I do think we need to post the job position immediately, as soon as possible. Put it out for 3 weeks, see what we get, and if we don't get anything, then we can extend it. I do think we need to get moving on that, so we have some sort of transition. So people know where things are here and that.
Yeah.
Get that posted right away.
Okay, well, now on the agenda for the night, so.
No, it is on this township, yes, about the town administrator.
This village, but on the agenda for the night to discuss. So that's how we can, let's put that, discussion. Go by the tax meeting.
Yes, sir.
Anything else? Thank you. No, good job. It's a beautiful town. Let's see what we'll breathe. Yeah, it's gonna be right ahead of all.
Okay, best of luck. I mean, I hope it worked out for you and all. You will be working in college, so.
Feeling like the space like that.
Well,
They want us to do money.
Like,
Because they asked us, there's a lot. We never close.